There's a skirt in your closet you stopped wearing somewhere in your 50s, and you've quietly decided that skirts just aren't for you anymore, that they're for younger women, or that they make you look matronly, or that at your age you should stick to trousers and be done with it. I've dressed enough women to tell you that's one of the saddest and most wrong beliefs I run into, because the right skirt is one of the fastest ways to take 10 years off after 60. Faster than a new haircut, faster than makeup, faster than almost anything you can put on your body. The women who look matronly in skirts aren't looking that way because of their age. They're looking that way because of the skirt, the length, the shape, the fabric, and where it sits on the body. Get those right, and a skirt lengthens you, lightens you, and adds a movement and softness to your whole silhouette that trousers simply can't. Get them wrong, and yes, it ages you a decade. The skirt is doing one or the other. It is never neutral. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 7 skirts that genuinely make a woman over 60 look younger. And I don't mean 7 styles to screenshot and hope your closet cooperates. I mean the exact mechanism inside each one, the line it draws, the point on your leg where the hem should land and why, the fabric that lifts versus the one that drags, and the single detail that separates the version that flatters from the version that ages. Because once you understand what these 7 are actually doing, you stop shopping for a skirt and start reading the skirt on the hanger, and you'll know, in about 10 seconds, whether it's going to lengthen and lighten you or add years you never earned. That's the real skill, and it outlasts every trend. Let's start with the one every woman over 60 should own. Because it does more for more body types than anything else on this list, and the reason it works is a single, quiet line. The first skirt is the A-line, and I want you to understand precisely why it's the workhorse of a good wardrobe after 60. Because the reason is geometry, not habit. An A-line skirt is fitted at the waist and then widens gently and evenly toward the hem in the shape of a capital A. A clean, straight diagonal line running from the waist down and out to the hem on each side. And that gentle outward diagonal does something no other shape does quite as forgivingly. It skims. It sits close at the narrowest point of you, the waist, and then falls away from the body over the hips, the tummy, and the thighs, never touching the parts you'd rather the eye glide past. That falling away creates what I call negative space, a little pocket of air between the fabric and your body. And negative space is the whole secret of looking younger and lighter in a skirt, because the eye reads the clean line of the skirt instead of the shape of the hip underneath it. A skirt that clings shows your body. A skirt that skims shows a line, and a line is always more youthful than a lump. But the A-line does a second thing that's just as important, and it's about where it holds you. It defines the waist. It sits at the narrowest point of your torso and cinches there gently. And waist definition is one of the most quietly youthful things you can do, because a defined waist reads as an hourglass. And shapelessness reads as age. Here is where women over 60 go wrong, and I see it constantly. They buy skirts with elasticated waists that sit low, down on the widest part of the hip, because those feel comfortable and forgiving. But a waistband that sits low on the hip does 2 aging things at once. It widens you at the exact point you'd rather narrow, and it shortens your legs by starting them lower down. The A-line worn at the natural waist does the opposite. It marks you in at your slimmest point and starts the long line of your legs higher up, which lengthens everything below. Here's what to check on the rack. First, find where the waistband is meant to sit. Hold it to your body and make sure it lands at your natural waist, the narrowest point at the base of your ribs, not dropped onto the hip. Second, look at the flare. You want a clean, moderate A that falls smoothly. Not a stiff, exaggerated triangle that stands out like a lampshade, and not a limp, near-straight cut that clings. And choose a fabric with a little body, a good cotton, a firm ponte, a wool blend, that holds the A-line's shape and drapes cleanly rather than clinging or collapsing. Here's your 10-second test. Hold the skirt by the waistband and let it hang. Does it fall into a clean, gently widening line with a little structure to it. That's your A-line. Does it either cling limp or balloon out shapeless? Put it back. And once you can see how much work a single skimming diagonal does, hold that thought. Because the next skirt draws its line in a completely different way, cut on an angle that most women have never heard of, and it's the most fluid, flattering, expensive-looking skirt you can own if you get the one thing right that ruins it if you get it wrong. The second skirt is the bias cut skirt. And I need to teach you the words cut on the bias, because once you understand them, you'll recognize quality in a heartbeat. Almost all clothing is cut on the straight grain. The pattern pieces are laid out square with the weave of the fabric, so the threads run straight up and down and side to side. A bias cut lays the pattern on the fabric at a 45-degree angle across the grain, and that single change transforms how the fabric behaves. Cut on the bias, fabric gains a natural stretch and fluidity it doesn't have on the straight grain. It drapes and flows and moves with the body like liquid, skimming over every curve and settling into a long, soft vertical line rather than hanging stiff. This is why bias-cut skirts read as so elegant and so expensive. The fabric follows your shape without gripping it, glides as you walk, and falls in that gorgeous fluid column that photographs like money. For a woman over 60, the bias cut is a gift because it gives you a skirt that shapes you gently and moves beautifully without a single clingy, unforgiving moment. It skims the hip and the tummy on a soft diagonal drape and keeps the eye moving down a long, liquid line. But here is the one thing that ruins a bias cut, and you must know it before you buy: the fabric. A bias cut only works its magic in a fabric with fluidity and a little weight: a silk, a satin-back crepe, a fluid modal or viscose, a soft wool jersey, in a cheap, thin, stiff fabric. The bias does nothing but hang crooked and cling in the wrong places, because it needs the drape to flow. And the second thing to watch is that bias-cut skirts, because they stretch and drape, can cling if they're cut too narrow. You want one cut with enough ease that it glides over the hip rather than gripping it. On the rack, feel the fabric first. It should feel fluid, cool, and weighty in your hand, the kind of fabric that pours. Then hold the skirt up by the waistband and watch it fall. A good bias skirt falls into soft, flowing vertical folds that move when you shift it. If it hangs stiff and flat, it's either not a true bias or it's the wrong fabric. And it won't give you the drape you're paying for. Wear it with a simple tuck top so the fluid line of the skirt is the star. And once you've felt how the right fabric on the right grain moves the eye down a long liquid line, the next skirt takes on the single most important decision in all of skirt wearing. A decision most women get wrong by an inch or two, and it's the difference between legs that look long and legs that look cut off at the widest point. The third skirt is the midi, worn at the right length, and I'm going to spend real time here, because length is where more skirts fail than anywhere else. And it fails in a way almost nobody diagnoses correctly. Midi simply means a skirt that falls somewhere below the knee and through the calf, and it has become the go-to length for women over 60. For good reason. It's elegant, it's age-appropriate without being frumpy, and it covers the knee, which many women prefer after 60. But here is the trap, and it catches nearly everyone. The midi is not one length, it's a range, running anywhere from just below the knee down to the ankle, and within that range, there are lengths that make your legs look long and lengths that chop them in half. The deciding factor is a single principle, and once you know it, you'll never buy a skirt blindly again. A hem should end at the narrowest point of your leg, never the widest. Let me explain the mechanism, because it's the same eye physics running under everything on this list. Wherever a hem ends, the eye stops and reads the width of your leg at exactly that point. The hem draws a horizontal line across your leg, and your leg's width at that line becomes the width the eye remembers. Your leg has narrow points and wide points. It's narrowest just below the knee, and narrowest again at the ankle. And it's widest at the fullest part of the calf, right in the middle, so a midi that ends just below the knee, or just below the fullest part of the calf where the leg starts tapering to the ankle, hits a narrow point, and your leg reads slim and long, but a midi that ends dead in the middle of the calf, at its widest, draws that horizontal line across the thickest part of your leg, and your leg reads short and heavy, and the whole skirt ages you, no matter how lovely it is. This is why two women can wear the identical skirt and one looks elegant and the other looks dumpy. It's landing on a narrow point on one and the wide calf on the other, purely because of their heights. So here is what to do. And it's not about buying a specific number of inches, it's about your leg. When you try a midi on, look in a full-length mirror and see where the hem lands relative to your calf. If it cuts across the widest part of your calf, that's the wrong length for you. And the fix is easy. Either size the length up so it falls to just below the calf toward the ankle, or hem it up to just below the knee. Either narrow point works. The wide calf never does. And this is exactly why a good tailor is your best friend after 60. Hemming a skirt to land on your narrow point costs very little and transforms the skirt completely. Wear your midi with a heel or a pointed flat that continues the line of the leg. And if there's any gap of skin between hem and shoe, keep it minimal, because a long stretch of skin at the widest calf undoes the whole thing. Get the hem onto a narrow point and a midi lengthens you like nothing else. And now that you've got the single most powerful lever, where the hem lands. The next skirt is the one women over 60 fear most and abandon soonest. And I'm going to show you it's not only wearable, but genuinely slimming and youthful, if you understand what actually makes it work. The fourth skirt is the pencil skirt, and I know the moment I say it. Half of you tense up, because the pencil skirt has a reputation as the skirt you can only wear if you're young and slim, tight and unforgiving and demanding. I want to dismantle that, because the pencil skirt done right is one of the most powerful, most sophisticated, most quietly slimming things a woman over 60 can wear. And done right hinges on two things almost nobody gets correct. First, understand what the pencil skirt is doing when it works. It's a straight, narrow skirt that skims from the waist over the hip and falls in a clean vertical line to the hem, usually just below or at the knee. That straight vertical line is intensely lengthening and elegant. It creates one long, uninterrupted line down the body. And one unbroken vertical is the most slimming, most youthful line there is, because the eye travels its whole length and reads you as tall. The pencil skirt also defines the waist crisply and follows the body's shape, which reads as confident and put together rather than hidden. Now the two things that decide whether a pencil skirt flatters or betrays you. The first is fabric, and it's non-negotiable. You want a structured fabric with body and a little stretch, a good ponte, a firm wool blend, a substantial cotton with a touch of elastane, something that holds its own shape and smooths over the body rather than clinging to every contour. The mistake women make is buying a pencil skirt in a thin, clingy fabric, which grips every roll and turns the skirt into shrink wrap. A structured fabric skims and smooths and creates that clean vertical instead. Think of the fabric as doing gentle shaping work for you. The second thing is fit. And here's the counterintuitive part. A pencil skirt should not be tight. It should be fitted, close to the body but with enough ease that it skims and doesn't grip, that you can sit and walk comfortably, that there are no horizontal pull lines straining across the hip. A pencil skirt that's slightly too roomy and skims looks 1,000 times more expensive and more slimming than one that's a size too tight and clings. On the rack, feel for that structured fabric with a little stretch, and when you try it on, look for a clean, smooth line over the hip with no straining. If it pulls or grips, size up, wear it with a slight heel to continue the vertical, and a top that's tucked or skims to the waist, and you'll look tall, elegant, and a decade younger. And once you see how a structured fabric turns a difficult skirt into a slimming one, the next skirt uses that same idea of an adjustable, forgiving fit, but draws a completely different line, one that's been flattering curvy and mature figures for decades because you control exactly how it sits. The fifth skirt is the wrap skirt, and its power is the same geometry that makes a wrap dress so forgiving. Concentrated into the lower half. A wrap skirt is a panel of fabric that wraps across the front and ties or fastens at the side or back. So the front panels overlap on a diagonal, and that diagonal is the whole magic. Instead of a flat, straight front, you get a line that crosses the body at an angle. And a diagonal line keeps the eye moving. It carries the gaze across and down rather than letting it stop and settle on any single wide point. A body the eye keeps traveling across reads slimmer and younger than the same body the eye stops and stares at. The wrap skirt also, like the wrap dress, lets you control the waist because it ties. You set exactly how snug it sits at your natural waist, which means it defines your slimmest point without ever squeezing or digging. For a woman over 60 whose waist measurement changes a little from day to day, which is every woman over 60, and every woman of every age. That adjustability is a genuine kindness. It always fits, because you decide the fit. There's a second, subtler thing the wrap skirt does well, and it's about the vertical opening. Many wrap skirts fall open into a soft vertical line or a gentle slit at the front where the panels meet. And that vertical break draws the eye down the length of the body and can reveal a sliver of leg as you walk, both of which read as youthful and add movement. The cautions are straightforward. First, watch the wrap doesn't gape or fly open in a breeze. A well-made wrap skirt has enough overlap and a secure fastening. And the best ones have an inner tie or a hidden snap, so you're never fighting it. Second, choose a fabric with drape but a little weight, so it hangs cleanly and doesn't cling on the diagonal. A fluid but substantial fabric, not a thin, slippery one, on the rack. Check the overlap is generous and the fastening is secure, and hold it up to see the diagonal line the front panels create. Wear it at the natural waist with the tie snug, and let that diagonal do its quiet, slimming, youthful work. And now that you've seen a diagonal, keep the eye moving. The sixth skirt does the opposite and just as powerfully. It draws a whole series of strong vertical lines down the body, but it's the skirt most likely to age you if you choose the wrong kind. So this is the one to understand carefully. The sixth skirt is the pleated skirt. And pleats are a beautiful example of how the same idea can flatter or age you depending entirely on execution. A pleat is a fold of fabric stitched or pressed to fall in a vertical line, and a pleated skirt is covered in these vertical folds running from the waist to the hem. When the pleats are the right kind, they're wonderful for women over 60, because a series of clean vertical lines running down the skirt lengthens the whole silhouette. Vertical lines draw the eye up and down, which reads as tall and slim, and the pleats add graceful movement as you walk. A soft swing that reads as youthful and light. A fine, fluid pleated skirt in a modern length is one of the freshest, most elegant things you can wear right now. But, and this is the crucial fork, there is a wrong pleat, and it's the one many women over 60 default to, and it ages them instantly. Here's the difference. The pleat that flatters is a soft, fluid pleat in a lightweight, drapey fabric. A fine accordion or knife pleat in a silky or chiffon-like fabric that falls close to the body, moves fluidly, and creates delicate vertical lines that skim your shape. The pleat that ages you is the stiff, structured, bulky pleat in a heavy fabric. The thick box-pleated wool skirt that stands away from the body, adds volume at the hip, and reads as a school uniform or a dated relic. The stiff pleat adds bulk exactly where you don't want it and reads as old-fashioned. The fluid pleat drapes and lengthens and reads as current, so the entire decision is fabric and pleat weight. You want fine, soft, fluid pleats that fall close and move, not thick, stiff. Structured pleats that stand out and add volume, on the rack. This is easy to test. Pick the skirt up and feel the weight and see how the pleats behave. If the pleats are fine and the fabric is light and drapey and the whole thing falls soft and fluid in your hand, that's the youthful version. If it's heavy and stiff and the pleats stand out rigidly, put it back. Length matters here too. A fluid pleated midi landing on a narrow point of the leg is stunning. Wear it with a simple tucked top so the vertical pleats run as long and uninterrupted as possible. And that idea, keeping the line long and uninterrupted, is exactly what the 7th brings together. Because the 7th isn't a type of skirt at all, it's the set of styling choices that decide whether any of the first 6 actually land, and it's the difference between owning the right skirt and actually looking younger in it. The 7th isn't a skirt, it's the way you wear every skirt. And I've saved it for last, because it's the multiplier that makes the other 6 work, or waste them. You can buy the perfect A-line, the ideal midi length, the most beautiful bias cut, and still look older than you are if you get these finishing choices wrong, and they cost you nothing but knowing. The first and most important is the tuck. When you wear a top out over a skirt, hanging loose over the waistband, you hide the waist entirely and draw a horizontal line across your hips where the top ends. And both of those age and widen you. The waist is your slimmest point and the highest start of your legs. Hiding it erases the very thing that makes a skirt youthful. So tuck, fully, or with a soft front tuck where just the front hem is tucked in and the back falls loose. And reveal the waist. That single move defines your shape and starts your legs higher. And it's the fastest way to look 10 years younger in a skirt you already own. The second finishing choice is the vertical line from waist to floor, and it's about color and continuity. A skirt lengthens you most when the eye can travel a long, unbroken line down your body. So anything that breaks that line into segments shortens you. A contrast belt in a loud color. A top that ends in a hard horizontal at the hip. Shoes in a stark contrasting color that cut the line at the ankle. Each one chops the vertical into pieces and shortens you. The fix is continuity. Keep the tones relatively harmonious from waist to hem. And this is the trick that works every time. Match your shoe color close to your hemline or to your skin tone, so the line runs uninterrupted all the way to the floor and your leg reads as long as possible. A nude or tonal shoe with a skirt lengthens the leg dramatically. A stark contrasting shoe stops the eye at the ankle and cuts you short. The third choice is the shoe shape itself. A pointed toe, even on a flat, elongates the foot and continues the line of the leg, while a chunky, round, or ankle-strapped shoe cuts the line and adds visual weight at the bottom. Little things. A tuck, a tonal shoe, a pointed toe. But together they're the difference between wearing the right skirt and actually looking younger in it. And that's the single idea underneath all 7. Read it back. Because it really is the whole thing. Looking younger in a skirt was never about covering up, or sticking to trousers, or deciding skirts aren't for you anymore. It was always about the lines the skirt draws and the points where it lands, the skimming diagonal of the A-line, the fluid drape of the bias cut, the hem that hits the narrow point of your leg, the structured vertical of the pencil, the moving diagonal of the wrap, the fine vertical pleats that lengthen, and the tuck and the tonal line that keep it all long and unbroken. Every single one is you taking command of line, length, and direction, and not one of them is about your age, your legs, or anything at all about your body. This whole conversation, start to finish, has been about hems, grain, fabric, and the physics of how a hemline lands and how the eye travels a line. It was never once about you. So here is what I most want you to carry out the door. You did not age out of skirts. You were simply wearing skirts that were working against you. In the wrong length and the wrong fabric, worn in the wrong way. And you understandably concluded the problem was you. It never was. Nothing about your body needs to change for one word of this to work. The only things that change are the choices you make on the rack and at the mirror, where the waistband sits. Where the hem lands on your leg, whether the fabric flows or stands stiff, whether you tuck, whether the line runs unbroken to the floor. That's all it ever was. So that skirt you stopped wearing years ago, go pull it out this week and look at it again with these 7 eyes. Not at your legs, at the skirt. Check where the hem lands on your calf. Feel whether the fabric flows. See whether the waist sits at your narrowest point. and you'll know, in about 10 seconds, exactly what it was doing wrong, and whether it's a skirt worth hemming and keeping or one that was quietly aging you all along. If you'd like, tell me which of these 7 you'd written off. For a lot of women, it's the pencil skirt, abandoned decades ago in a fabric that clung, when the structured version would have made them look tall and slim all this time. I read what people write, and there's more of this every single week.